Hi guys, I'm Melissa. I'm super excited you're here. We've probably chatted in the DMs on Instagram, or you landed on my page and was super intrigued about what remote nursing is or nursing entrepreneurship. So before we get into this, I want to tell you why I built this. Most nurses don't need another pep talk. We don't need another idea, and we definitely don't need another thing to do after a 12-hour shift. What they need is a way out that actually makes sense. I kept seeing the same thing over and over again. Nurses were burned out, curious about what remote work was, maybe even flirting with a side hustle, but stuck. Not because they weren't capable, but because there was no structure and they had no idea where to start. Remote nursing sounds good, extra income sounded good, but no one was showing them how to turn their experience into something real and something sustainable. I've lived it myself. I've coached enough nurses to know this. Burnout is so real, and nurses are feeling it right now. We are literally leaving the bedside by the dozens. That's why I don't separate remote and side hustles. They're not two different worlds. They're tools, ways to use the skills you already have without even walking away from nursing. We worked way too hard and paid a lot of money for these degrees to throw in the towel now, or better yet, stay in an environment that is mentally and physically draining. So, what I do now is I help nurses take what they already know, such as clinical judgment, documentation, coordination, problem solving, and use it to build remote careers and income streams that don't depend on picking up more shifts. This program isn't about chasing trends or doing more because that stuff isn't going to work. It's not going to be sustainable. It's about building something that's steady, intentional, and systemized so your career actually supports your lifestyle. I've been a nurse for over 16 years. I started out in the ICU step down, then I went into home health, and about 6 years ago, I moved over to the managed care area, which is insurance nursing. It was prayers answered, and I remember being so fearful to take that leap because I didn't know if I was going to like it. I've been a nurse entrepreneur now for 3 years, and I help so many amazing nurses find that same happiness. So let's get right into it. Have you ever looked at your life as a nurse and thought to yourself, like, this cannot be it? I worked too hard for this license. You're not alone because at some point it stops being about loving nursing and it starts being about what it's costing you, right? I remember working in home health and just being extremely burnt out. I dreaded going back to work on Mondays. We always had short staffing. We had such unsafe patient ratios. I had an insane caseload that I couldn't even manage, and management didn't even care. I had mandatory overtime, and let's talk about on call. I was on call from Saturday morning till Monday morning, and it was non-stop calls. I would get calls at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was just brutal. The one number one reason I left bedside was because I was so micromanaged. My manager was always telling me how I could do things differently, how I could do things better. I was never doing anything wrong. It was just always how I could do it better. She was always going through my documentation, and it was just so draining for me. And let's talk about the fact that every time I requested PTO, it would get denied. And it got denied because we had short staffing. We didn't have enough nurses to work. So, for instance, if you had a Christmas off one year, you literally were not getting it again for another 5 years because they needed to give everybody the opportunity to have holidays off, rightfully so. But it was just so depressing to me thinking that I was not going to be able to spend a Christmas with my kids again for another 5 years. Now, let's just flip it to the other side. I was constantly working paycheck to paycheck. It felt like nothing was ever giving. I was constantly picking up extra shifts to make ends meet, working overtime, and that just added to the burnout. It added to how much I was drained on the job. And then I would see other nurses on social media starting side hustles, creating these businesses. And I thought to myself, like, I would love to do that, but I have no idea where to start, what to sell, what to create. Like, I was just completely overwhelmed with the thought of any type of digital marketing or social media platform. And then I was second guessing nursing altogether. I remember saying to myself, like, is this even going to be for me? Should I just leave nursing? What else would I do? If you're anything like me, nursing was my plan A. I did not have a plan B. I went to nursing school straight from high school, and that was something that I thought I was going to do and be forever until this burnout kicked in. And I said to myself, there has got to be another way. Like, there's got to be something else out there for me that is going to bring me happiness in my career. And then I heard about remote nursing, and this was about 7 years ago when remote nursing wasn't the hype of social media. So I had to really figure everything out on my own. I didn't know what any of the roles were. I didn't know how to get into these positions. I definitely didn't know anybody in a remote position. And it took me some time. I definitely made mistakes along the way, and it wasn't even a competitive market as competitive as it is now. So let me break down what remote is and where you fit in the remote world. I break remote nursing down into two areas. You have the traditional side and you have the non-traditional side. The traditional side is going to be all your insurance nurses. This is going to be your case managers, your utilization management, appeals, grievances, clinical documentation. They work for the insurance company and they help to close gaps in care and really make sure patients are meeting criteria. Now, the non-traditional side is the biotech side. This is going to be your pharmaceutical sales, your medical devices, clinical trials, quality control, all those types of things. Those are global biotech companies and they pay nurses really, really well. Both of these areas are wonderful areas to get into. And it just really depends on what you're looking for, what you want your life to look like moving forward, and really what are your non negotiables. Again, for me, I did not want to work nights, weekends, holidays, and absolutely no more on call. Then you can break remote down even further. They have hybrid, field, and then strictly remote, and they are just as they say. Hybrid, you might go into the office a day or two here and there during the week. Field, you may go into facilities or into patients' houses. And then you have strictly remote, where you work strictly from your home office and you never step foot out of your house. Then you have shifts as eights, tens, part time, full time. You really don't see 12-hour shifts anymore in the remote world. It is very rare that I come across a 12-hour remote opportunity. Most of your remote opportunities are going to be your Monday through Friday, 8-hour shifts. And then it breaks down to all different roles. You have patient facing roles. These are your case managers, your triage, your nurse educators. And pretty much what these nurses are doing, again, is they're closing gaps in care. They're making sure that patients have all the resources that they need so that they are staying out of the hospital, that they're managing their disease processes. It almost mirrors what you do at the bedside, but you are working from the comfort of your own home. Then you have what we call behind the scenes nurses. And this is a really cool, unique role for an introverted nurse. These are your utilization management nurses. They also are prior auth nurses, appeals, grievances, the clinical documentation integrity nurses, HEDIS nurses. And what these nurses do is they make sure that patients are meeting criteria for inpatient stays, specific durable medical equipment that they need, or they're authorizing, let's say, like tests and procedures like MRIs and whatnot. You have a lot of leadership roles in the remote world. These are your team leads, supervisors, subject matter experts. I mean, there's so many different areas of leadership in remote, so much more than the bedside. And the great thing about the remote world is you don't have to go back to get a higher degree to get into a leadership position. You can land these leadership positions with your associate degree RN. You can land them with your BSN. And then you have the biotech side, which I talked about earlier. And this is where nurses are literally educating other nurses, facilities, providers on new medical devices that come out on the market, technology that's created to enhance patient care and patient outcomes. And that's a really unique, great role. It pays nurses very well. The thing with biotech is it may not always be remote. A lot of times you're out in the field when it comes to biotech positions because you're going to be visiting facilities or going to hospitals or having face-to-face education with providers. So keep that in mind when you are, looking into the biotech area. Okay, now that I've discussed what remote nursing is, now you want to know, how do you stand out with your bedside skills in this market? So We want to start with clarity. You want to get very clear on what you love about nursing and what you want your life to look like moving forward. And that is the number one question I ask my clients when we are in our private onboarding Zoom is, what drives you in your nursing career? What do you love and what do you want to get away from? You also want to write down, what are your non-negotiables? Do you want to work strictly remote and never be in the field? Do you not want to work weekends? Do you need specific benefits? Like, you really want to get very clear on what you want, because you want to build this next path for yourself. You do not want to settle for another toxic environment. And a lot of those non-negotiables are going to be, understood when you get into the interview and you start asking questions about key performance indicators, metrics, and really what your day-to-day life is going to look like in that role. I have had many nurses go into interviews and not hear what they wanted to hear and turn down that position, because your non-negotiables are the most important aspect. We've already suffered a lot as nurses with everything that's going on in the healthcare system. The last thing that we want to do is get into another toxic environment. Now, next is your resume. You obviously want it to be ATS optimized. You want to have transferable skills, impact, value, and metrics on your resume. When I work with my clients, we work with the most up-to-date market resume, which is going to be core competencies. What are the core competencies of the remote world? And it all depends on the exact role that you're going for. So obviously, case management, you're going to want to really spend time on where your experience is with care coordination, discharge planning, communicating with providers, documentation, what are your remote ready skills. Also, you want to make sure you're keeping your soft skills in there too, your empathy, just all of those important transferable skills. When you're going into the biotech space, you want to make sure your resume is very geared towards that biotech space, creating workflows, understanding quality, understanding HIPAA and FDA guidelines when it comes to medical devices. There's a lot that goes into that resume, and I would be very careful with ChatGPT, because it's going to spew out a whole bunch of fluff information that recruiters and talent acquisition can pick up very quickly. In my program, we have a very strategic path when it comes to creating your resume and creating it so that it pops and that recruiters want to interview you. Then you want to start to look at job listings and apply to these positions. Again, you always want to keep those non-negotiables in mind. You do not want to be applying to something that doesn't fit what you want your lifestyle to look like moving forward. I always teach my clients inside of my program that you never want to just apply to a position, close your laptop, cross your fingers, and pray, because it's not going to work like that. In this market, and being as competitive as it is, you have got to network yourself into these positions. 80% of these jobs are filled through networking, not through somebody applying through a job site or a job board. So when I say networking, I mean take it on over to LinkedIn. If you do not have a LinkedIn and you are trying to get into the remote space, you will wait years to get into a remote position. LinkedIn is a gold mine, and there is so much opportunity there. And within my program, I teach you 3 pillars of networking, and that is how to professionally send private messages, how to professionally comment on companies' posts, your interest and being intrigued to get into that company, and the most important is how to brand your skills on LinkedIn. Once you land that interview, the most important thing is that you understand what those nurses do day in and day out, so that when you walk into that interview, you know how to articulate your skills coming from the bedside, so that that hiring manager says, yes, this is the girl or this is the guy that we want to hire. You have to understand interviewing. You have to understand the behavioral style interview questions, and you have to ask the right questions too. Like I said earlier, you want to step into that interview and understand what are your key performance indicators for this role. Because if they tell you that you have to make 250 calls a month, that is not something that I want to do. I definitely do not want to be in a phone heavy position. That might not bother you, but I know for me that does. So when I step into an interview, I want to make sure I understand my metrics completely so I know what type of environment I'm getting into, but also what type of management is backing me, and do I have the ability to have flexibility? Is my manager going to support me when I need to take off of work? All of those things are really important, and there's very professional ways to articulate those questions in an interview. I teach all of this inside of my program. How to create a side hustle that actually brings in income. So my goal was to make $2,000 a month to walk away from my PRN job. I never imagined to turn it into a six-figure business. I just didn't. I didn't have a business background, and I even started my Instagram from scratch, a brand new account. But what I did have was the mindset and the grit, and I never stopped learning. When I say we build side hustles that actually bring in income, I'm talking about things people are already actively trying to fix in their own lives. So we start with a clear, pain driven problem. Think about problems like someone trying to lose weight but overwhelmed by conflicting advice, or they tried numerous times and they failed before. So, someone drowning in debt and needing a simple, realistic plan to save money, or even someone going through a divorce and needing guidance, structure, or emotional support to get through it. These are problems people don't just Google once, they're actively searching for help. Next, we identify a monetizable skill that helps solve that specific problem. So, for example, a person who's lost weight sustainably and can teach a simple process to someone else, someone who's paid off debt and can help others build a realistic budget, or even someone who's navigated divorce and can support others through the emotional side of it. So, these are all skills people need and want. Then we build a product or an offer with a clear result. Not general advice, but something specific. That might look like a 30-day weight loss reset, cookbooks, maybe even a workout plan, or a step by step savings or a debt payoff plan, or even a structured program to help someone feel stable and supported during a divorce. I help you create a product suite so that you have low and high ticketing sales and that you have multiple streams of income coming in, and that is what is game changer. I have heard people say, oh, create an ebook and sell it for $30. That's not going to bring you life changing money. And when you do the math, you would have to sell hundreds to be profitable, and it would come with the need for constant marketing. However, that coupled with a program of high and low ticketing products will give you the ability to walk away from that PRN gig, and then it becomes your brand. And honestly, from there, the sky is the limit. So from there, we create a simple sales system so that people understand what you offer without you having to explain it over and over again. So this can look like a clear page that explains the problem, the process, and the outcome. A short video walking them through how it works, just like the video you're watching right now. This works on autopilot for me. I created it once and anyone can view it at any time, even when I am sleeping, and an easy way for someone to say yes when they're ready. We focus on distribution and visibility. Visibility is important because even the best solution doesn't work if no one sees it. That means learning where your people are and how to talk to them about the problem naturally and how to show up without feeling pushy. Believe it or not, that's LinkedIn for me. It's the most professional platform, and I don't have to do silly dances to reach my audience. I show up as the professional that I am, and I solve one specific problem, and that's nurses trying to land remote positions. And then finally, we build systems that that create repeatability. So instead of starting from scratch every time, you have a repeatable process, again, kind of like this video, clear boundaries around your time so there's zero burnout, and structure that supports income without the burnout. That's how side hustles stop being random and they start becoming something you can actually rely on. I want to leave you with this. My mission has never been to pull nurses away from nursing. It's to help them stay without sacrificing their health, their families, or even their future. So, this photo here was taken on my last day of working bedside. I was super happy. And this one here, that's me traveling with my family because I finally got my time back and built income that didn't depend on me picking up extra shifts. What changed wasn't my work ethic, it was how I used my license. I realized that remote nursing and side hustles aren't backup plans, they're tools. Tools that give nurses flexibility, freedom, and financial breathing room so nursing doesn't have to cost you everything. That's why inside this program, I don't separate the two. You get both pathways because real life isn't a one size fits all. Below, you'll see two levels of coaching. Both are 6 months long, both are strong options, and both are designed to help you use your license in new ways while building income that supports your life, not the other way around. If you've been feeling like there has to be another way, this is where you start. Take a look at the options below, choose the level that's right for you, and let's build something that allows you to stay in nursing without staying stuck.